You guys, my name's Frank Viola, and this is the very first, the premiere, first of many episodes of The Outdoors with Carl Allen. It's a Walker's Cave podcast. He is the boss, the owner, founder, and the man, someone I look up to, and I'm proud to be here with you today, Mr. Carl.
All right, Frankie, thank you.
So this is the first podcast we're going to do. We're going to have a lot of special guests on, and today you are the special guest. You'll be doing mostly interviewing in the future. Today it's all about you.
Great. All right, well, what you got there?
I think we start with, Carl, we're sitting in your warehouse, and it's an art gallery to someone like me. I'm an outdoorsman. To most, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, in my younger days, we used to do a lot of hunting. In here, we've got a whole bunch of animals from Africa, Alaska, Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, and just family. A lot of it's family. And over the years, we just started collecting it, and I like the diorama scenes that we did. It kind of makes, look a little classy in here, not just a bunch of animals hanging on the wall.
It's unbelievable the places you've been.
And everything in here's got a story.
You at a young age, you got into adventuring, and that was your core focus, basically, for everything you've done.
Yeah, I think it all started, my stepdad was a big influence on me when it came to hunting and fishing, and I think, I shot my first deer when I was like 11 in Western Illinois, and that just kind of set me off, I grew up on the Finger Lakes. My parents had a house on Canisius Lake south of Rochester, so I was really into the freshwater fishing, and then later on I grew up on Lake Michigan, did a lot of, salmon fishing and German brown trout and stuff like that, going up the rivers for carp along Chicagoland there. And then when I was 12 years old, we took our first trip to Stewart. My stepdad had a home in Yacht and Country Club at Stewart in the early days, and really didn't have a boat. We had a center console that he rented from a guy down in Jensen Beach, and I'd never even seen the ocean. And my first experience was going out to St. Lucie Inlet. You hang a right, and a couple miles down is a really neat place called the Kingfish Hole. Mm-hmm. And certain times of year the kingfish run in there, but what we were after were Spanish mackerel.
Okay.
And my God, when you're in the thick of it, it's, every cast, and they make really terrific marlin bait is what you're really after.
So you were into marlin already at that point?
Well, it's just, that was sort of the beginning of it. My stepdad was kind of working my way up the food chain, I think is what we were doing. But I said to him, I looked out to the east and I said, well, what's out there? I'm 12 years old. And He said, well, there's, the Bahamas. And I said, well, can we go there? He said, well, we're not going in this boat, And he had a friend who had an old trawler boat. Oh God, I don't even remember the name of this thing. Just a 1-engine screw, and happened to be a great weekend. And he said, hey, my buddy's invited us over. We're gonna go see the banks. We're gonna fish on the banks, and then we're gonna go to Walker's. And I said, Walker's, what is that? He says, it's an island. It's the northernmost island of the Bahamas. And so I had a little, like a tower on it. I'm standing up in the tower, and I remember seeing the banks. And you'd never experienced that, especially never even been in the ocean. You see how blue the Gulf Stream is, and then all of a sudden there's like this wave of every blue and green coming at you that you can imagine. And we stopped there and we fished for grouper and snapper and stuff, and then finally I got my first look at Walker's when I was 12, and I was just so excited to be there. And I ran, I think, around the whole runway and around the east end, the west end, and back then it was hustle and bustle. It was going. A lot of people were there. I remember meeting the Applanaps and the hospitality that they had, and I did declare that moment that I would own this island someday.
At 12 years old?
At 12 years old. I think maybe people thought I was kidding because it took me 42 years to do it, but I was fortunate enough to close on Walker's Cay April 18th of 2018.
When you inked your name on that paper to own the island, did you think back at 12 years old? Were you like, I can't believe it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean,
it gives me goosebumps just
what's
thinking about
weird is, I'd been to the island 100 times, but the time that I rolled up on it the first time as an owner, it was like seeing it for the first time.
Really?
And I mean, I was just as excited as I was when I was 12. I ran around the island again and realized that I didn't buy an island here. I bought a freaking legend, and the people that on social media have gone crazy. It is spectacular what this project that me and my family have taken on.
I can't believe it. I watch it on social now as you've invited me to be a part of this, and it's astounding the amount of people that it's like a cult following almost.
Yes.
Everything you post like a bird pooped on the island, and everybody's up in arms like, oh my God, what kind of bird?
Well, you can imagine, going back to the tournaments, the Bertram Hatteras shootouts and those and the weddings. I mean, I can't believe how many people got married on that island. And so that's one of the first things that we're bringing back is the church. We're going to renovate the church, and eventually it'll again be a wedding destination. We'll have hopefully 50 to 60 keys, the marina, a chapel. I'm going to build a honeymoon cabin at the end of the island, next to the Bonefish Lodge.
That's your baby.
That's going to be the baby. Yes, I'm very excited. As much as I love offshore fishing, I'm a big backcountry guy. I just love bonefish and tarpon and permit, and my favorite idea is a lodge at the western end that's just exclusively for bonefish. We'll have probably 12 keys. It'll be great for like corporate retreats, maybe a bachelor party, and it'll be away from the hustle and bustle of the marina, and so it'll be like your own little thing. I've hooked up with Hell's Bay. And we're going to be exclusively Hell's Bay's boats out there. I got 2 Hell's Bays myself now. I got a Marquesas that I bought from Flip Pallet, and then I redesigned a new one, same hull, and it's 100% carbon fiber, which is really cool. And so now we have 2 identical little Hell's Bays. I'm really excited.
So the owner, Chris Peterson from Hell's Bay, the owner of Hell's Bay, was so blown away by that idea that he is now only making carbon and negra.
Isn't that awesome? Yeah, I mean, I feel like
ride so much better.
I've worshipped Hell's Bay for so many years, and now all of a sudden I feel like I'm kind of a Hell's Bay influencer.
You are. The
way we've been going, and the only thing that I did wasn't Flip Pallet would call me a communist, but I put a power pole on both of them. He's not a big power pole guy.
He's not a big power pole guy, and you put an iPilot on your skiff as well.
The best thing is that new trolling motor.
Mini Coat iPilot.
But yeah, the Mini Coat, it's unbelievable that engine, and you can put it on like a sky hook. Mm-hmm. And one of the best things we found out, if like you're fishing for horse-eyed jacks, you can put it in that current and just sit there. I mean, and just crush them all the way around you. So, the pole guy, I'm sorry, we really don't need the pole guy anymore,
No.
But we still use it for bonefish, but that trolling motor has revolutionized, some of the jack fishing, which is
unbelievable.
Yes.
The same thing in tarpon down in the west coast of Florida. We do the same thing. I pilot that thing down, and the tarpon come right through. Everybody else with the poles is all the way up there and missing the fish.
Flip taught us how where you take the plug and you flatten the hooks out.
Yeah.
You throw that out there. You get them chasing it, and then you throw that fly on top.
It's unbelievable.
You don't see that on Flip's movies, though. You only see the fly. You don't see the plug. It's not quite as pure, but
it's not as pure, but it's still fun.
Boy, it's still a blast. Yeah, absolutely.
So of all the places, all these beautiful places you've been, all the animals, all the fish. You've got Alaskan fish, you've got Russian fish, you've got Finger Lakes, Michigan, you've got San Salvador, all these places. What was so great about Walker's Cay?
Well, Walker's Cay is a very, very special place. I mean, one, it's the northernmost island in the Bahamas. It's got a rich history of, going back to Walker's, who was a judge that was exiled there. And, it's out in the middle of nowhere now. Can you imagine what it was like in 1700? And this poor guy, Judge Walker, he lived there by himself, I think, for 14 years, So there's a great story there. And then it was just, there's no water there. Back then, we drill now. But, it's kind of sat there, really, until the first family came in. Believe it or not, the island was actually owned by Pan Am Airlines for a little while. And I think it was sort of a government thing where they wanted, the strategic part of it. It's very close to Canaveral. The rockets fly right over Walker's and Carter's. They had a NASA tracking station on Carter's Key, which is about 25 miles east of me. But it's it's hard to describe. You meet people like Johnny Applenapp, Billy Black. The rich history that's there has really been in the last 50 years. And they didn't get hit miraculously by really a big hurricane until '04.
Yeah.
And then Francis and Jean just pretty much took it out. And it sat there and sat there and sat there. And I'm an entrepreneur. I was lucky enough to build a really solid business, and never thought I would sell it. I had 1,000 of my best friends working for me. We were doing huge sales and making a lot of money, and had somebody come along and offer me a number that I just couldn't refuse. And my wife and I talked about it for days, and finally realized, wow, with this kind of money, with this kind of resources, we could really do what we love.
Yeah.
And so I sold it almost 4 years ago now, and first thing I did was I bought my wife a 164-foot Westport yacht, and trust me, if you want to get your wife into the yachting business, name it after her. That is definitely something that helps. But we were sitting there after that. I bought hers, and I said, you know what, now we got to go buy mine. And so I really, at the boat show 4 years ago, at the Flip show, Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show, I ran into this company called Damon, and they made, really they're tenders for the North Sea for the oil business, but they make a perfect yacht support vessel. And the one I was interested in was 183-foot, steel on bottom, aluminum superstructure, big crane on it, a crew of 11. I put guest suite on it. We built a garage. I paid $10 million for the vessel, and we more than doubled that in what we put into it.
And I got to meet those guys this year.
Yeah, you spent some time on it.
And they said they're now building boats to the models.
Yeah,
You've done it twice now, Hell's Bay and these guys.
I'm a pretty good businessman, but somehow I missed the royalty on that. But I've definitely I've started a fad, because you could go out and buy a 350-foot yacht, but you're not going to the Bahamas. You're going to the Bahama, which is Nassau.
Yep.
I've built this really new concept where, we've got 355-foot a yacht that is, we draft, at the most we're drafting 10.5 feet. The Gigi's drafting 8.5, which means we can get into a lot of places in the Bahamas. It hauls a submarine. The submarine around the Bahamas is some of the best in the world. The drop off of walkers, especially there, is incredible. I've never seen more fish in my life, and it ledges down, so you can get those ledges. We've been down to 3,000 feet. Every time we dive, we see stuff that no man has ever seen before.
That's unbelievable.
It's just fantastic. We've got a small airplane that we use, and a fishing boat. I'm a big offshore guy. I grew up doing that, and had a 52-foot. I used to love express boats because I love to drive and I love to fish, and you're right there. But I needed a bigger boat, and so we went out, and I absolutely fell in love with the new 68 Vikings, and it's just the sweetest ride I've ever owned, and we've had a blast. We've owned it for about 5 months. We've already caught, I think, 15 marlin, 2 dozen tuna, wahoo, just about everything. She really catches fish. It's got the gyro on it, which I never thought I would like the gyro. They really work.
You took us out after the hurricane.
The Seakeeper,
and it was still like 6-8 foot seas, and that thing was like
it just sits there. It's absolutely great. And one thing we love to deep sea fish. To deep drop, and wow, that dynamic positioning and the Seakeeper, you sit right there. And so when you mark the bottom, which is real important when you're deep dropping, you're right there. Versus the currents moving, you kind of got to time it. So it's really between the Gigi, the Axis, and the frigate, and all the little, Hell's Bay and all the tenders we have, it's a fleet.
And that makes up Allen Exploration, which is another arm of what you do.
Well, that's what, after I sold the company, I said, you know what, I am an explorer, I'm an adventurer, and I'll explain what that means. Here we are sitting in Dallas, got a big office in Las Colinas, we're on top of the building, everybody thinks, naturally, we are an oil and gas business.
Yeah.
We are probably as far as you can get from an oil and gas business. I don't have any investments in oil and gas. What we are is a true exploration adventure company, and part of that was to build the fleet. I always say, we move, you can't find anything sitting at the harbor is what I like to say. And so about a year into it, I realized, boy, I need a home for this fleet. And being in Florida can get pretty expensive and hard to find. to put this large fleet in. So it really started to make sense for me. Oh my God, Walker's will be the home of the fleet. And one of the things I'm very excited about is you've never been able to get a super yacht into Walker's, and when we're done with the marina, we'll be able to get up to 8 super yachts, and they're up to 200 feet, 14-foot drafts, 96 docks. We'll be able to get all these center consoles, which is the big thing today. Yeah. The convertible boats, for sure. The big 92s, Vikings building and Hatteras building, and then of course the two legendary boats, that we'll have there, with Billy Black and the Duchess, and very excited that they're rebuilding the Sea Lion too.
That's unbelievable.
And so when we open the marina, those 2 guys will be there. I have a deal with Billy Black that he has I have a lease agreement with Billy. He's get a $1 a year lease agreement on Walker's at the slip of his choice, as long as it's not one of mine.
That's
But so we're looking forward to that. He'll be coming up. He's going to be one of our first guests.
That'd be perfect.
When we do the next podcast.
I'm going to talk his ear off.
Oh yeah, I mean, you'll talk for an hour about fishing, and you'll want to talk for days about it. The guys, caught every fish you can imagine out there, and big stuff, 1,000-pounders, huge bluefin tunas, giant wahoos, and you ask him about that, and I would think all the stuff he does, his favorite thing to do is wahoo fish, and he's not a high-speed guy. If you ask him, he'll do 10 knots. These other guys are out there doing 14. Some guys doing 20.
That's unbelievable.
So, but yeah, it's very exciting that this is all starting to hit me, because it's the year. This is what I've been saying. Walker's reborn 2020, and holy cow, we were here. I told my wife at New Year's, the clock hit midnight, and I said, "Oh boy, here we are. It's going to be, a fantastic year. We're going to open it."
Miss Gigi's been crushing it too. She's been nonstop. She's
a huge part of this thing. I mean, in the beginning, I didn't know if I would have her or my kids into this thing, and I'm not here to talk about numbers, but this is a lot of money. Okay? Yeah. And we are putting a significant amount of resources into this, and it's this dream I've had for my whole life, and it took everything that I do to do this. I had to get to know the government. I know the Prime Minister very well. I know the Governor General very well. All the ministers of the island. It took knowing the culture, the politics, the money system, the economy, the ecology, the environment. I've probably been to every single inhabited island in the Bahamas, and probably a whole bunch that aren't inhabited. And so spending 40-something years over there, you get to know people. I pride myself on getting to know everybody on the island that we're at. I've gotten to know everybody on Little Grand, especially after the relief that we did. And I am so happy that my family is just as much of this is into it as I am. As a matter of fact, I have 4 kids and 2 granddaughters. Most of the island's going to be public, but there will be a small part of the island that will be private, just for the family, and each one of my kids has a lot.
That's incredible.
So they'll be building here, hopefully, in the next couple of years.
Speaking of resources, you put everything that you were working on to a complete stop, and you put all your resources into helping the Bahamas after Hurricane Dorian. And I'm gonna get emotional thinking about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we couldn't do anything else. I mean, I was sitting over in Stewart, and I'm watching this storm, and I knew when it stopped, I'm like, oh no, here we go. And immediately, right there, started thinking about, okay, how can my fleet help? And we got to the island about 5 days after the storm, loaded to the bear. We had, every vessel I had was filled up with everything from diapers to roofing supplies to, I don't know how many bottles of water we had, beer. We had a lot of beer. You can imagine what we had. And when we got there, those people nobody got killed, nobody even got hurt, but they were devastated. And the Axis ended up making 7 trips, over 1 million pounds of supplies, not including the diesel and the gasoline, and just comfort, knowing that we're there, that we're right out there, that they can come. We had a line of boats, looked like a filling station at Exxon, just filling these little boats up. There's an organization, an NGO called Pacific Hope, and I cannot say enough about these people. Were sent from heaven. Incredible folks. They've been there, they're still there, and they were a huge part of the relief effort. We really turned Grand into an epitome of what relief is all about.
Agreed.
And so I'm very proud that we helped them out. We got them back to normal. Matter of fact, the island is actually in better shape than it was before the hurricane. But again, I'm going to need probably 50 of those people to come on and work for Walkers. And they've been devastated. They had the Klein tragedy back earlier in the year, which Mr. Klein was a wonderful man, and he took such good care of his people there and them. And then the hurricane hits. They thought they were going to lose me. And I think one of the greatest moments of my life is going there and having a town hall meeting and standing up on the box and telling these people that we are here to stay. And I was, kids crying and, parents coming up to you and thanking you, and it gave them hope, and that's what it's all about. There's about 500 people there on Little Grand, and, not to sound a little bit arrogant here, but my whole fleet is turned into like folk legends the way that we handle it,
It's unbelievable.
and that we can go on the island now and there's people there that look at us like we're from a different world, and it's really neat because we got to meet the people that are going to bring Walkers into the future.
Agreed.
And I found a lot of those people, a lot of relatives on that island, and what I did find is people saying, we want to help you here, but Mr. Allen, Mr. A, they call me, which I'm very proud, Mr. Applenet, we want to work for you over on the island.
That's unbelievable.
And we're going to need it. We need everybody, and it's going to be jobs where you can work your way up. We'll have management positions all the way down to fishing guides. Very excited to put some of those bone fishing guys back.
Those guys have some pictures of some big bonefish.
Yeah. Those guys are itching to go back to work, and you start talking about when bone fishing, and their smile comes back.
Yeah.
And they realize that, look, as important as the offshore fishing is, Walkers is a mecca for that backcountry fishing. And just what Walkers is all about is the variety. Mm-hmm. I question, where can you go and get this variety? Maybe the Seychelles? We're 100 miles from Florida.
Yeah.
This is spectacular. So the big part of this is bringing that back. Why is this desolate when we're so close to the Gold Coast and all this money over there? I sit there and go, what, me? I'm doing this? Why hasn't somebody done this before me?
It's unbelievable.
And look, there's a lot of people out there that have the money to do it. It hasn't been done. But you know what? When I closed on that island, again, it gave me this whole different feeling when you pull up to there, and I saw it. I saw the vision. And we were there right after the hurricane, and I'm pulling up to it, closing my eyes, and I'm going, oh my God, is it destroyed? And you open your eyes, and I think the best way to describe it is it looked like northern Wisconsin in late January. There wasn't a leaf, a coconut, nothing on that island. It was totally bare, and the salt water made everything brown. Okay, and you're like, God, it's ugly, but man, it's still here.
I remember seeing that with you.
And I thought to myself, God, is this ever going to come back? And as we were doing relief for, almost 90 days. About 2 weeks after the storm, little buds started coming up on the fig trees and the palm trees, and 2 weeks later, and 2 weeks later, if you go there now,
Green.
You wouldn't even know that hurricane even hit.
It looks better now.
It actually looks better because it cleaned it out a little bit, and we cleaned it out.
Yeah.
We found 20 acres on that island we didn't know we had. And so, I'm sorry about what happened down in Abaco, and Grand Bahama. It's tragic. We don't even know how many people lost their lives and the destruction, and a lot of those places it's going to be years before it comes back. But I'm very proud and I'm very excited to say that the northernmost Big Grand, Little Grand, and Walkers is well, alive and well, and on a big comeback trail.
Speaking of that, to finish this whole thing up, you got to tell me about your goals. Because 2020 is your year.
Yeah.
This is the year it happens.
Yeah, it's going to be a weird year. I actually got a small school that's given me a doctorate degree up in Rhode Island, and called Salve Regina, and part of it was, what are you doing in the Bahamas? And they want me to tell that story. And I guess I got to finish it up by saying, we're an exploration company. We're adventurers, and everything that I've done in my life, whether it's the island or the fishing or getting to know the government or contributing to the pollution studies, it's cloaking something. And
You're going to say,
I don't talk about this much, but
you never talk about
I
this.
have probably never talked about it, but there is something out there that I find a lot more fun than fishing and hunting, and that says a lot, because you can see I love the sport.
Yeah.
And about, I was 20, so 35 years ago I was down in Key West I had gotten certified in a quarry in Wisconsin where I grew up, and I met Mel Fisher down at his museum. And this was about 3 years after he found the Atocha. And he was sitting at his desk, and I had a buddy with me, and I was a little bit shy. My buddy says, "My God, he's all alone. We got to go talk to him." And so we walked into his office, and he had, we had been to the museum, and mouths are open, and my buddy says, Mr. Fisher, did you find everything that's out there? And he had if you've ever been there, and this was a while ago, but he had an office that looked like a pirate ship. Okay. And he had sand floors. And my buddy asked him that question, and he says, "Boys, come on in here a minute." And we sat there at his desk, and he reached over, and he grabbed this huge pile of sand, and he plopped it down on his desk, moved all the shit out of the way, and now he's got this big pile of sand on his desk. And we're like, "Yes, what is it, Mr. Fisher?" And he goes, "Boys," and he took his glasses off, and he put two little kernels off to the side. And he said, "Those two kernels is what I've found. That is what is still out there."
Oh my God.
And I had a job, and I was going to work for the family business. I wanted to tear all that apart. And Mr. Fisher, I want to come to work for you right now. Okay? And I instantly, thank God I didn't do that, because I went on and was able to build a fantastic company and do what I'm doing now. But it got me the disease. And very excited that we're going to open a lab, conservation area, and a museum in a really neat area of Port Lucaya that
This
we
whole
found.
thing's going with you.
And eventually, I have donated this collection behind you, which we're going to show separately here in a minute. And this whole collection's going to go, because think about it, there's no natural history museum in the Bahamas. The kids down there have never even seen some of these animals, and so that's what's exciting for me, is that we are bringing culture to the Bahamas. It's so needed down there. Nassau's got a couple things, Freeport's a couple things. The cruise ships are everywhere.
Yeah.
They don't have anywhere to go. The kids don't have anywhere to go. And so by building a maritime museum and a natural history museum is the ultimate goal of Allen Exploration. But we do a whole bunch of stuff. My wife and I are big philanthropists. We've always given away, my accountants don't like it, but we give away about 25% of everything we've made in our life to various charities.
That's unbelievable. That's a lot.
The Mormons, they are like, "Oh, we give away 10%. I said, "You guys are amateurs, And we don't have a foundation or anything like that, but because it's so complicated, foundations.
Yeah.
And it's just easy just to give it away. And we love helping children. We've done a lot with the Envision Blind Workshop up in Wichita Falls. Our big year for us is there's a children's hospital in Jackson, Mississippi that my wife and I have donated millions to, a bunch of our time. We've worked for 5 years on this project. The original hospital was designed for 30 kids, has 300 kids in it. This new hospital is going to be the best children's hospital in the Southeast, called Batson Children's Memorial, and my wife and I are going to be involved in the ribbon cutting mid-October, so we're very excited about that. The other thing we do in the Bahamas, we've given away over 1,100 tablets to the kids.
Wow.
And it's so rewarding. You go in and you give these electronic things to a kid that's never had anything electronic. Mm-hmm. One of the things I love to do is show them an encyclopedia and say, this is a neat book, got a little bit of information about everything.
Yep.
Read it. And then I hold this thing up, and I say, this thing has every book ever written known to mankind. Okay, and one of the neatest things we do is we bring in 3D goggles, the VR,
Yep.
and we interface that with Google Earth.
Oh, that's incredible.
And we put it on these kids, and you say, we had a little girl, we said, where do you want to go? And this little girl says, well, I really want to go to Paris. And we flew her right through the Arc de Triomphe, right around the Eiffel Tower, back through downtown Paris, and she's freaking out, and all these kids are wondering what's going on. You put it, kid wanted to go to Alaska, kid wanted to go to Chicago. It was just wonderful. But what's really neat is a lot of the children's books on Amazon are free, and you can just download them. So we have a master that, here's a class of say 50 kids, they download a book, the next thing you know, it's on every single tablet.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's free. And that's what's so neat about it. And there's books that are very cheap. They can go in and buy Gulliver's Travels, for instance, for $1.99.
Yeah.
And, they can go all over the world on Google Earth. And that has been one of the most rewarding things my wife and I have done is you take these children and really bring them up. They've got to catch up technology-wise.
Yeah.
I've had several conversations with the Prime Minister. They want to bring high-tech companies there. That starts with the kids. Okay, I told him, we had this big meeting, I introduced him to the governor of Texas. You've got Silicon Valley, you've got Silicon Texas, you've got Silicon Virginia. We've come up with a coin, and I'm proud to say that I coined this, Silicon Beach. Okay, and we've designated an area of Freeport that they're trying to bring in the Googles, the FANGs. They want to bring in these guys, and I can't say it right now, but we've got one signed up.
Oh my.
And very excited about that. I was partly involved in that. And again, one of their questions is, how are you educating your younger kids? Okay? And we're going, hey, the government matched us. So for every tablet we give away, the government will give another one away.
That's incredible.
So our goal, it's a steep road, but our goal is to put one in every kid's hands. And there's about 330,000, Bahamians. There's about 60,000 kids in preschool and primary, and that's what we're aiming for. It all starts with the kids. So.
I think you just told the whole world who you really are, because I asked you what your goals were for 2020, and instead of talking about walkers or the things that you can do for you, you just went on a whole rant about charity and giving back and all the goals you have for giving people things.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that it's always giving back. I mean, every time I do something, I don't know why, but I guess, I get it back in spades. So it's wonderful, and to see the devastation of what happened in the Bahamas, and to see now that it's coming back, you just can't buy that.
We're gonna have so many interviews like this where we can go over all these different things. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I mean, this is the first one. I hope that people enjoy it. I mean, we're gonna have some really neat guests coming on. Again, one of my favorite people and an icon of walkers, Billy Black, will be coming on first, and he'll probably, he makes lures, so he's probably going to get into that a little bit. And there'll be a little sign over here where to get it, 1-800 number probably. But he's a great man, and he's, like I said, he's an icon out there, walker. So he'll probably be on there, and then we're going to work our way into, probably some of the vendors we have, with Hell's Bay, and we love the watch company there at Yeti, and who's ever interested, we definitely want to promote some of those products. I'm partnered up with Flip Pallet in a very cool company called Frigate Rum. There's a whole story there. I mean, one of the neatest things that I'll never forget as long as I live. And Flip Pallet, I don't think he believed me about walkers. He said, people have been trying to buy walkers. Yeah. And about 2 weeks before we bought it, I called him up. I said, he lives in McMinn, Florida. I was about 2 hours away. I said, can I buy you dinner? He said, no, you come in. I'll cook you, a javelina roast or whatever it was. And
I'll fry up a rattlesnake.
We showed up at his house, and sure enough, some of the best rump roasts I think I've ever eaten in my life. Me and Flip just hit it off. I'm sitting in his living room, and he's sitting on his floor. He's got that big pillow he likes to sit on. And my phone rings, and it's the lawyer. And he said, congratulations, you just closed on Walker's Cay. Sitting in his living room.
The man that made it famous.
The man that made it famous. And I looked at him, and they're all talking about, and I said, excuse me, people, we just closed on Walker's Cay. And that was the moment that he believed me. And
until the moment that you get the call.
I Flip can be an emotional guy, and he couldn't talk for a few minutes. He was really, really excited about it, and I grew up. Well, I was in my 30s when it came out, but I mean, I was living in Atlanta when Walker's Cake Chronicles came out, and it used to come on at 6:30 in the morning. And I'd be up, being like that. My wife was like, well, you can wake up to see Flip at 6:30, but you won't go to church at 10, And it was like, this is my religion. I'm watching my church right here, And some of my great memories of him and Lefty, and, Flip's amazed that I can almost memorize every, episode. And he's like, what's your favorite one? I said, bar none. My favorite episode is one day when Mr. Purist Flip Fly Fisherman decides we're going carp fishing. And I remember they announced it like a week before, and I'm calling him, Flip's going carp fishing. And sure enough, you see him in the backcountry. I think it was in Florida, and makes these perfect casts, and we got one, and catching carp on a fly rod with Flip Pallet. I just never thought I'd see him do it. Well, about 2 weeks later, there's an episode of him, because he got so into carp, he's in the UP, Michigan.
Oh my God.
Which in the summertime, you would think you're in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
And it's clear water, and they're casting for him, and they're like tarpon going through the water.
Are you kidding me?
You got to watch that episode. It's carp fishing, UP, Michigan, Flip Pallet. And he's always got a buddy with him. His buddy's with him. Incredible show. And you'd think he's Poland, and he's talking about the Bahamas, and you'd think you were off with strangers or something like that. The water's crystal clear.
And this in UP,
Michigan. Yeah, it's up there. It's in the flats.
I heard they have like pink salmon and stuff up there too.
They do.
It's a crazy place up there.
Yes. Yeah. Now the salmon and the trout really don't breed in Lake Michigan, but they think maybe they're getting some of it up in the rivers up in Michigan. But that's
World traveler.
But it is. Boy, this has been great, Frankie. It's good to
Carl,
see
thank
you,
you
sir.
so much for helping.
How's your dad? Your dad's good. Hopefully,
He's
say
doing
hi
good.
to
He's
him.
looking forward to seeing you again.
We got to get your dad on here.
Oh, you could
You
talk.
turned
to
him into a fisherman. So.
I did. He's got a lot of stories about me failing and him not failing, and
I mean, you have failed a lot in your life. So,
compared to him, yeah.
All right. Well, that's great. Thank you very much,
Mr. Carl.
Yes,
Thank you so
absolutely.
much.